Well, the big question of Mitt Romney's taxes has now been answered, at least in part, and we got Brodie Mullins with the Wall Street Journal in Washington, D.C. Brodie, I'm sure you always love looking through tax documents, so give us the quick summary here. I think he paid a bit more in tax than I did.
Yeah, he probably paid a little bit more than both of us combined. His tax paid about $3 million in taxes. He gave $3 million away to charity, and he made about $21 million. But most of that $21 million was in passive investment.
So that we're talking about a fairly low tax rate, 14% in 2010.
Right.
That is bound not to play well with some voters who see their own paychecks and they're paying a lot more in effective tax than that, depending on their income, obviously. Is this is this just what it is, and Mitt Romney's going to have to deal with it?
Well, I guess that's a good way of putting it. I mean, there's nothing he can do about it now. I don't know how much it'll hurt him in the Republican primary unless the populist wing really rises up against this. He paid 14%, an effective rate of 14%. I think it'll hurt him more in the general, because Obama is certainly going to try to make this a campaign about the elites, about the 1% versus everyone else, and Romney's clearly in the 1%. But he made a really good point in the debate last night, which is he looked at Speaker Gingrich and he said, "Mr. Gingrich, under your tax plan, I would pay 0% taxes," and he said he wouldn't support that. Gingrich said that he wanted a 0% tax rate on capital gains and dividends because he thinks it's the best way of creating jobs.
Okay. Now, you also made a massive donation. You got various donations, but a big chunk of that was to the Mormon Church. How is that going to play among key Republican voters, sort of evangelical Christians?
Well, that's another good question. He gave at least $1.5 million of that $3 million in charitable contributions to the Mormon Church. I suppose we could have guessed that because he said before that he gave about 10% of his income to the Mormon Church. He might have given more than that. It's difficult to tell because there are some stock contributions that are given in to charity. So far the Mormon issue has not really surfaced in the election so far. I really thought it was going to come up in South Carolina, and it didn't. Maybe it'll come up down the road. It's no secret that he's a Mormon, so I guess I just don't know if that, the fact that he gives money to the church really changes things. Okay,
Brodie, stay with us. I want a quick look at a graphic here of basically a breakdown of Mitt Romney's income and taxes, so we can get that on the screen. Okay, here we go. 2011 income $21 million, 2010 taxes $21.7 million, 3.2 million in taxes, and $3 million in taxes, a 3.9% rate. I mean that is just quite staggering. Reported on tax returns. Brodie, when people see this, I go back to, they're going to look at their own paycheck at the end of the month or the end of the 2 weeks and look at what their take home is as a portion of their income, and there can't not be some problems with this, right?
Well, I see it two different ways. In one way, we knew Romney was rich. He's already released his financial disclosure form saying he's worth several $100 million. That wasn't much of a surprise. I suppose he wouldn't really want that in the news too often, but it's part of his biography. He can't get away from it. On the flip side, I think that what might be more of a concern is he released 1 year of his tax returns for 2010. He released an estimate of his 2011 taxes. And he said, that's it. That's what I'm going to give you. His father, as you know, when he ran for president, released 12 years of taxes. He was asked about this in the debate last night. He said that 1 year or 1.5 years is plenty. And I just think that someone like Mr. Gingrich or other reporters are going to say, well, what about what happened in 2007 or what happened in 2005? Why can't you release those years? So I wonder if what's going to happen is that other candidates in the press will keep hammering him to try to get more and more of these tax returns, and that issue could keep dogging him.
Yeah, sometimes it's best just to open up the can and just let everyone have at it, so that there's no more questions. Interesting of note, he received about $500,000 in quote author/speaking fees. That, by most standards, would seem like an enormous amount of money to a lot of people for being an author and for some speaking fees, and yet it pales into insignificance compared to the rest of it, doesn't it, Brody?
Right. That's funny. I hadn't thought of that until now. Yeah, it's such a small, tiny part of his tax return, but yeah, it was $500,000, and I think it was 8 or 9 speeches or so. So, not bad work if you can get it.